Well, it has certainly been an interesting year, that's for sure. As of course, around this time last year, I released my review of the original Mario Brothers movie, and all the craziness that film had to offer. It was a way to prep for the upcoming Mario movie that still had one of the most baffling and insane announcements I have ever seen.
I'm eager for you to see a humorous Donkey Kong by Setsun.
Though a lot has changed since then. And I gotta say, after fearing for the worst with this movie, the marketing behind the Super Mario Bros. Movie actually showed a ton of promise. Like, this is from Illumination of all people, and it's actually looking more like a proper adaptation of the games, despite the likes of Chris Pratt, Jack Black, and Seth Rogen as these iconic characters. Clearly, that potential I saw with the idea of a Mario movie was certainly becoming more of a reality than I initially thought before. You bet I was eager to see this movie, and I even prepped in various ways, not just with the original live-action movie, but I also checked out that anime OVA that was also interesting. I played a crap ton of Mario Kart with my friends. I got to go to Nintendo World, which was an absolute blast, minus it being rainy as hell while I was there. And I even decided to watch through all the films of Illumination that I had not seen yet. And that...
Listen! Hey! I got bras in Atlanta!
Certainly was an experience. With all the potential this movie has, I was really hoping this would turn out quite good, or at least a good starting point for the series, if not great. So, after all the fears from what happened back in the 90s, Minions tarnishing Nintendo's name, and Chris Pratt voicing Mario, how is this new Mario movie? Well, for starters, I think Illumination knocked it out of the park with this film on a technical level. This is a gorgeous movie, and a huge step up from Illumination in terms of other animated movies from them. Not to say that they looked visually horrible, but they did have kind of a safe, generic look to them that makes them not stand out as well to me in a sea of other animated films. This one legitimately looks impressive visually, and I think that's thanks in due to how much this is a faithful looking movie for the games. The Mario franchise is super bright and colorful, and this movie takes advantage of that by really having a lot pop out in the same way the games have. Characters move great, the film gets very creative with its set pieces, and it just looks like a lot of care was put into making this world feel real, while also still being stylistically cartoony. This also goes for the music, which is also fantastic here. The score was done by a collab between Brian Tyler and Koji Kondo, meaning you hear a lot of newly composed versions of classic songs from the Mario series, which, hey, the fact this movie actually includes the theme song and like new variations of it is a definite praise unto itself. I noticed that some people complain about movies utilizing the theme songs if it's based off an iconic property, and I think that critique is sometimes a bit unwarranted. Sure, I do get that it can be pretty easy to over-rely on an iconic theme song to the point where it can get obnoxious. But I find it more questionable for iconic themes to not be included at all in a feature film. And what makes Mario so good in terms of the music is that you don't just hear the main Mario theme. Throughout the entire movie, you hear plenty of classic tunes from games of all different eras. And they're all reorchestrated in a new cinematic way that does give this movie a great sense of faithfulness to its source material. If I had any critique to this film music-wise, is that there are a few licensed songs here, and admittedly, I wasn't crazy about the idea of them being included. Granted, it's not as bad as I expected here, and that's because the majority of the movie is still dedicated to Mario-like music. Plus, to be fair, the songs chosen here aren't bad songs, and they at least don't use anything that's too new in terms of music. It's mostly just a lot of popular 80s songs, and as overused as some of them are, they're not inherently bad within the film. Even with that in mind, it does ultimately feel unneeded. Like, it was just more a part of this unspoken rule that every big animated film has to have a licensed song at some point within the runtime. Yet, it doesn't tarnish what is a pretty great score as a whole. So far, this is some good stuff. And it does add to this movie being more of an authentic Mario experience than I have ever seen before. And that's not even including all the neat little nods they have throughout the entire history of Mario, Donkey Kong, and even a few references to other Nintendo franchises that I wasn't quite expecting here. It could sound like this could be overbearing with references, like a lot of movies are doing nowadays, but it feels more authentic here, as it just sticks with stuff relating to Nintendo more or less. And I think the references came at the right time for this movie. I was enjoying a lot of the callbacks, and this movie actually does have a decent sense of humor. Nothing that I would say made me laugh out loud super hard, but nothing that I would also say was excessively cringeworthy when it comes to the movie's jokes. Maybe one or two bits in the whole thing that were kinda groan-worthy, but more often than not, I was chuckling and smiling at a lot of the little fun sight gags dealing with all of these characters. All promising stuff, sure, but how about the story and characters in all of this? Well, if I do have to result to my biggest issue with this movie, it does come at a result of the story being fairly light. Now, I do realize that yes, Mario has never been about the story. The series has always been kind of the basic adventure tale. Rescue the princess, defeat the dragon, mumbo jumbo. I don't think something like this needs to be as deep as something like a Pixar movie. I'm not expecting the next WALL-E with something called the Super Mario Brothers movie. Where it does lead to some issue is how it is as a Mario movie. The series and even the film on its own sets itself up as this grand adventure. And within the games, you really feel like you're on this big journey with Mario. The film wants to go there, but holds back as this is a very fast-paced movie, but almost too quick for something like this. It's a film that seems to go from set piece to set piece, and whenever it does show them going through these escapades, it's mostly relegated to montages. Maybe if the film was just a tad longer, or even just tried to soak in more of the environments they would go here, or have some more quieter moments with these characters, I think you would get a better sense of adventure here. Not saying that something like Mario needs to be a 3-hour long epic, but maybe an hour and 45 minutes might have been more ideal for this kind of movie than just a simple 90 minutes. The other issue I have that would have made this film just a tad stronger narratively if we had more character interactions in this film. This is because when watching through the movie, you notice that certain characters don't interact with each other in the film as much as you would expect. Case in point, since this film is about Mario trying to save Luigi, you don't get as much of the two interacting for a decent chunk of this movie. Even Bowser doesn't really interact with Mario all that much. And I think you could have sprinkled in a little more of them going back and forth with one another throughout the film, instead of just having it be during certain big moments. Not only do I think this would have worked better as a way of giving these characters a tiny bit more depth to them, but watching the movie itself, I actually did wanted to see more of these character interactions. To go back on positives again, I think the characterization of everyone here is pretty great for the most part. The dynamic between Mario and Luigi is genuinely fun to watch, as they do have good camaraderie with one another, and that's thanks in due to how the characterization is still very accurate to how these characters are in the game. They're not the most in-depth characters or have the biggest arcs, but they still have a lot of personality to them. Mario is the charismatic lead who screws up but manages to get better as the film goes on. Luigi is the lovable, cowardly sidekick. Peach is the strong leader. And Bowser is a giant, threatening monster who simps for Peach. They all feel like their original characters here, and how I imagine Mario characters would be like. And yes, this is still true, even despite the celebrity voice cast. For as much as people were dreading the nature of Chris Pratt poorly imitating Mario, he actually does a pretty decent job here. He isn't the best performance in the movie. In fact, I don't think this role is as good as his work as Emmett in the Lego movie. But he legitimately puts on a voice for Mario, and I think it works well. It doesn't feel too out of place, and the times he does try to replicate Mario's style of talk sounds a lot better than what some of the trailers made it out to be. In fact, for the most part, the cast here is pretty good and do give very fitting performances for these characters. Jack Black, Charlie Day, and Anya Taylor-Joy were all really great in their roles, giving fitting voices for these characters and also working off each other really well in terms of character performances. Other voice actors do appear in this movie, and they do a good job, along with a few pretty fun cameos by Charles Martinet as well. If there is a downside to the voice acting for me, it really could have done better with the Kongs in terms of voices. Cranky Kong does appear in the movie, but his voice in this didn't really fit for me. Not to say that Fred Armisen does a bad job with the voice in general, but I feel like for a character like Cranky Kong, he needed to sound a lot, well, crankier. This voice sounds more like Larry David to me, and I'm not sure if that fits. And also...
Ah! You got the cat box! Oh my... I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I still can't 100% get behind Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. It's the one voice in this that feels the most like, yep, this is a celebrity voice, but it could have been worse. So, overall, in regards to how the Mario movie is, well...
I finally found it! Now who's gonna stop me?
Now, that's more like it. For the most part.
Come on, Mario!
The Super Mario Bros. Movie is an incredibly fun time as a proper introduction of one of the most iconic video game characters of all time. It may not be 100% best case scenario Mario movie, but at points, it comes pretty damn close. By the end, I was really marveling at all the expressive animation and action set piece that really made this feel like I was watching the Mario movie I've always wanted. Definitely a far cry of what we have gotten before with the original movie. And while I do admittedly like something like Sonic 2 a bit more, this is a much better starting point for Mario as a movie franchise than the first Sonic movie was for his franchise. If the film had just a tad more emphasis on highlighting the adventure element of this series and had more fun character dynamics, then it would have been even closer to a perfect Mario adaptation for me. But as it is, it's a good start, and I definitely hope for a sequel to this to improve on what was great about this adaptation. Keep it up, Nintendo and Illumination. I think you'll have even more winners with video games and animated movies if you guys expand upon what made this a really good time. So take that for what it's worth. Rating out of 10? Good stuff. It's definitely worth checking out. So if you happen to see the Super Mario Bros. Movie, what did you guys think about it? Comment below, let me know. Hit that red subscribe button if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys again in the near future. Later.